Did you do?
I shouted bananas.
I didn't even hear. All that. Okay, perfect. Okay, Reece, tell me a little bit about yourself, your background. I've only met you I've only known you for a few months, I'd probably say. And then throughout lockdown, we were doing similar things, got into a few talks, and I decided that you were a decent guy.
Can I talk now?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh man, where do I start? So my name is Reece. I'm 29. Most people know about me because of my athletics, which I've been doing for like 12 plus years. It's been my main focus, been my main priority in my life pretty much throughout that whole time, apart from probably the last 2 years of university. Trained and competed at quite a high level. Worked a numerous number of jobs, but probably the main place that I got started was at BXR, teaching Versa and S&C style classes, and then just developed as a trainer and as a coach from there. And I think I already had quite a lot of knowledge already from my coaching background and from my degree in sports science, etc., and obviously other qualifications, but it mainly came from my experiences. And then, yeah, started working at Equinox around this time last year, actually, as a group fitness instructor as well. And teaching her, like, getting, passed off for loads of their different signature formats.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be tested for. And
and now both of them are shut.
Yeah, no gyms, no modeling jobs. So it's been an interesting quarantine period. An explorative one for sure.
Damn right. I think there's so much of you on your Instagram and some of the chats that I've seen prior that are all athletic based. It's all down towards like your knowledge, etc. But what intrigued me was one of the first conversations that we had, and we started speaking about relationships and the opinions of like guys and girls and the differences that we have, and actually the wrong perceptions that we probably have of the other gender.
Yeah.
So I figured we'd take some time to know the other side of Reece, because the other side of Reece is a nice guy. So I figured we'd delve into that. But the main conversation we had, well, we went running. We went running. You went running. I think I completed the warm up. And that was about as far as I got.
You did what? A for effort, for sure.
But we got talking, and I'm not sure how it came about, but we were saying, I think we were talking about relationships in general, and we brought up what it's like on a night out and how it feels to be a girl on a night out, regardless if you're there with your friends, but if you are kind of looking to meet someone, etc.
Yeah.
I kind of said that it's a lot harder, I think, for girls to meet guys than it is for guys to meet girls. In the sense that I think in terms of like confidence and everything, it's a lot harder. And I was with a group of guys last night, and it come up there as well. One of the guys had a girl contact him. There were pictures, like they were banter and whatnot. And it was quite obvious that the girl wanted to kind of meet up, etc. And his reaction was almost, weirdo, what's going on? Why is she being so forward, etc. And the other boys kind of took it as like, mate, like she's just interested. But yeah, it kind of related to our conversation. Because I think for girls, for some reason, I not say for some reason, because there are a lot of girls that are quite crazy. Because of that, and because of how guys are, they tend to make girls sound crazy. And I think because of that, girls then try to back off a little bit and don't want to come off crazy, but they also want to be able to express themselves as well. So there's like a fine line of, I'm not going to text him because then I'm going to seem too eager. But then on the other hand, I should be able to do what I want.
Right.
I don't want to come off as crazy. So right. Have you had that experience? Or ever thought that? If a girl was to send you a few pictures, and these are pictures like innocent pictures of herself,
Yeah.
If you've known her before, what do you think your reaction would be?
If I already know her, might have gone on a date or at least had a couple of FaceTimes or spoken a little bit. And, you know, I think it's very easy to gauge from well, I find it very easy to gauge with a personal conversation and the route that it's going to go down. So if I felt like we were having those types of conversation, or we were having a bit of banter and we were getting on well over FaceTime or whatever it may be, and then she sent a few pictures that were non-sexual, and it might have just been like where she was at. Maybe she went to a park and there's like a nice view or something. I wouldn't think that's weird, or why is she sending that to me? It's just like, I don't know. But again, I appreciate those things. Like, I appreciate going to like a hill and like seeing scenery and those types of things. So I personally wouldn't see that as like a red alert or alarm that she's a bit of a weirdo and that I should play it off.
Mm.
Recently,
one of my friends had the same situation where she just wasn't sure if she was messaging the guy too much. She hadn't really met him. She met him once, and now he's been a little bit, he hasn't responded as much. I think if you set the boundaries at the beginning, if you've been a quick responder at the beginning, then you kind of have to keep that up, or at least let the other person know times are busy right now, because I think it's quite natural that if that position changes, naturally the other person's going to think a little bit more into it. Like, why you were responding so quick at the beginning, we've met up and now it's not as quick.
Do you know what? Yeah, I think for most people, that's probably the energy that everybody gives. I think when you're in that very first stage, when you're wanting to talk to somebody and wanting to see, is this the person that I maybe want to hang out with? Is this the person I want to, for me, it's like spend my time and go on a date with? Is this the person that I want to pursue things further with? I think for most people, you'll give a certain level of energy, which is higher than you perhaps would at any other point. And then, like you said, I think it's very important that you communicate, like, I gave you this energy because I want to see where it was going. I like you, but I can't continue that energy because I've got things to do. Like, I'm working on this, I'm working on that. And that's, I think if you put it on the table like that and let them know, like, I did this to kind of get your attention, because in a world where you can just swipe 1,000 times on your phone, or you can go outside looking nice and get hollered at by lots of guys if you're a female, somebody has to go above and beyond to get your attention. If a guy finds you attractive, you know. And I think for most people, everyone has somebody, right? So everyone is attractive in their own way. But if we're looking at like societal like overview of like how somebody's attractive, where it would be like having a symmetrical face, a particular feature on their body that's attractive to the other sex, then perhaps they're more likely to receive more attention. So if that's the case, then you're now in a bigger pond with more fish that you're trying to get to get the hook, to catch the.
So in a nightclub setting, if you were on a night out, for example, and we'll say that you're considered probably like you're a good-looking guy, would you expect girls to come up to you, or would you make the move?
Never an expectation. Never. Number one. Number two, I hate approaching women in those settings, because number three, I'm never in those settings. So I feel like there's a certain level of confidence that comes with always going out for drinks, bars, that kind of environment. I feel like there's a certain energy that comes with it, with those people that are in that environment on a routine basis. So the way that I might just be with, my friends that work in the city, let's say I go up and meet them for a drink or for some dinner, and we're in a, say, Broadgate Circle, for example. There's quite a lot of men, but there's some women in there as well. And if you just like observe the way that certain men behave, or that people would behave in maybe more of a nighttime bar, where there's a few more females around, and just the way that they're schmoozing, and just the conversation, the way they're communicating and acting towards the other sex, I find it awkward, because I'm like, that's not something that comes naturally to me. I'm not really a bars person, to be honest. I'm not really a man that just spits bars and now I've got their attention, and now that's not really me. But I feel like some people that perhaps they don't have perhaps the looks to get their girl's attention straight away, they have to have the gift of the gab. So it rolls off the tongue for them. And I think, again, going back to me and me not really being that comfortable in those types of situations, first and foremost, because I'm not really a crowds person. I don't really like being around loads of people. So when you're in those environments, plus it's dark now, plus people have got alcohol in the system, and then you see somebody else, and then you see a female that you like or you think is attractive and you wouldn't mind talking to, for me, I just overplay it. I'm like, there's so many guys here. She's going to get pros loads. She's going to think I'm one of those guys that are like drinking and wanting to get into her pants. It's like, I end up talking myself out of it. I mean, like, you know what, I'm just leave it, innit? I just can't be bothered. There's been...
I would never think that. Well, I speak for myself. I don't speak for all girls.
Yeah.
But personal stance, I would never think that was going through your mind. I think quite the opposite.
I don't come at it with an ego. Like, I'm not like... I don't hold myself in a certain esteem to think she's not going to turn me away. I just think, like, if I'm the same as everyone else, there's not really any reason for me to go over and talk to her. She's probably just going to be like, I'm out of my friends, as most girls do. They're out with their friends. They want to have a good time with their friends. They're not here for that. Now they're just telling me if she's got a boyfriend. I'm like, I only want to come and talk to you and tell you, you know, how beautiful you are, and I just hope you have a good night. Like,
right.
It gets so like toed up. I'm just like, I just talk myself out. I'm like, you know what? I think she knows she's beautiful. If so happens the opportunity arises, we're close together, I might just say like, hey, I'm not trying to hit on you or anything. I have to put a disclaimer in there. Just say no, because I think far too often when a guy approaches a woman as well, they believe that like they're trying to hit on them. It's like, why can't someone just pay you a compliment? Yeah, just say, hey, like, what'd you do? Cool. I'm not trying to get your number. I'm not trying to get your Instagram. I'm not trying to ask you out on a date. I'm just letting you know, I think you're beautiful, the way you look. We've had a good conversation. Let me go about your night or go about your day or whatever it may be. But, I think it's become a little bit difficult to do that. Maybe just for me, or maybe I'm just overthinking it a bit too much. But I think because I'm never really in those environments, like I said. But it's an interesting dynamic, I think, when you go into those spaces.
It is. Because I just think girls are so, from talking with girls, I just think we're so worried about how we're going to come across because of this, what is it called? Like this stereotype that's like connected to girls being crazy and needy and whatnot. And you don't want to come across like that. So I think that knocks your confidence even more. But then if more guys are like,
why not just be who you are? If you're a needy person, you're a little bit crazy, just be needy and crazy. And then the person knows exactly what they're getting. Because you might be the loud person in the room, and the guy might love an outspoken girl. So he's like, that's the one. I need to go chat to her. And more likely she'd come back with some fiery words, and I'm going to love it, and I'm going to chat to her even more. But if you're trying to be the quiet one, but really outside to your friends, you're loud, you're outspoken, like, just be who you are, I think. So then everyone knows where they're at. You want to talk about communication, but like you're kind of hiding how you're communicating to the world through your personality and how you're holding yourself. So
yeah, I think it's communication again, because I think if you like my friend, for example, if she's been waiting or hoping that there would be a second meet, you kind of, it's the breakdown of conversation again. I think it's so hard that we just forget that it's easier to communicate than it is to not, instead of where all these games come into play.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where we stand. That can be the most confusing thing. So why do we not just say out loud, like, I would love to see you again, but this is my circumstance right now. Or this isn't going to go any further. I just wish more people would probably say that, instead of watching my friends go up and down thinking like, I don't know if this guy is into me or not, and it's back and forth. He'll randomly want to meet up, but then it's been like 7 days where the conversation's been up and down.
Yeah, it's I mean, I'm not going to claim to be the person that's always. I'm pretty good at communicating, but I'm not going to lie to you and say that like I haven't been that guy that's just kind of dropped off the face of the earth and haven't bothered, because I felt like probably in those situations, that it wasn't really that far down the line for me to warrant really giving that energy to say, like, we both kind of knew where it was going. It was fizzling out. It doesn't really need for me to say like, look, this is how I feel about the situation. It isn't really that deep. And I think if you're able to gauge where you are with those things, if you're seeing somebody for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and then you drop off, it's like, well, that's questionable. Like, because you was given a certain amount of energy in the beginning for quite a sustained period of time there. But if it's just a couple of week thing, or, you know, like a month, and then, you know, you go on 1-2 dates, but now you're just like other things going on. Again, attention. Everything is so easy to get your attention right now. I struggle to write an email. I end up like, I wanted to look at like a quote I saved on Instagram. I go onto Instagram, and then 30 minutes later, I'm looking at rabbits jumping through hoops, like, and I forgot I'm writing an email. It's got to be sent in 30 minutes. You know what I mean? So it's everything's just attention grabbing. I think sometimes we lose sight of what the actual aim or what we're trying to get out of a person or a situation. Not in terms of like financial gain or whatever, but just like, why am I investing my time into this person? Is it because we have great conversation and I feel like there's a good friendship to be gained here? Or is it because we're both attracted to one another, or a person is attracted to the other and you're hoping it's reciprocated, and you feel like there's a relationship to be gained there? Like, I guess it's asking yourself those questions and asking the other person. Like, if you have 2 dates and you know what, you don't have a third, it's probably not going to go anywhere. But if you're both loving the second date and it's almost not even a question of whether you're going to have a third or not, maybe you know where it's going. Do you know what I mean? I think often we block how we're feeling inside to ask other people's opinions on the situation, rather than actually just listening to your intuition.
Yeah.
How you feel about a person or a situation.
Yeah, because we want that other person to be like, no, it's fine. I'm sure he's just busy, etc. You're just telling that just to make yourself feel better, because you'd rather do that rather than sit uncomfortably and admit to yourself, I think he just doesn't like me.
And that's okay, because not everyone likes everyone.
Yeah.
I found out today that a certain, I don't even know who the person is, but they don't want me to be at a particular place on a certain day. I was like, right, I didn't even know I had enemies, or like people didn't like me like that. But it is what it is. Like, I can't get everybody to like me as a person, or expect everyone to like me, or even really want them to like me. Because those who do like me for a reason, and hopefully it's very positive in that sense. Like, if you don't like me, then I don't really care. Like, there's no contact, there's no connection there. So I don't.
They're so good at that, just shutting off, and I think that's where maybe males and females are a little bit different. I think some females can. I like to think that I can for the most part, but then I do have that girl in me that's kind of like, oh, love me a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, from the conversations that we've had, I think you are very good at defining like how you feel about a particular situation, and being strong with it, like expressing how you feel, and like this how it is. This is what it is. It's not much more. It's not much less. But then you're also, but then I haven't seen the other side of that. So but I think you're not giving yourself enough credit for. Like, I don't think it's a male or female thing. I do think it's a person thing. However, I think we can look at science. Women and I think most people will agree with us here that women are a little bit more emotional than men. For the most part, not everyone, but for the most part, I think women are a little bit more emotional than men. And that's not a bad thing either. Like, to have emotion isn't a bad thing. It's not I'm not putting it down. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, but
just naturally being a little bit more emotional means that your way you're going to respond to a certain situation, or how somebody's made you feel, is going to be in that spectrum. And in the spectrum for a guy, more than likely, it might be them just shutting down and them saying, you know what, I'm not really interested.
Yeah.
Stop it. And the girl's probably a little bit more emotionally invested, which
and
is why.
Don't realize it. They don't realize that it's just a natural chemical response as to why you're feeling like that, rather than just sitting with it just for a couple of days and then deciding how you actually feel about it. I think that's so. I don't think girls realize that. Like, we were listening to a podcast and a bunch of guys just discussing about sex and what it is for a guy, what it is for a girl, and they were basically like, look, I was really into this. I was emotionally connected to it, and then once it was over,
In the moment.
Yes.
Loving it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you all these nice things, and then once it's loaded, unloaded, done.
Yeah.
But I don't think girls realize that. Girls don't realize that this is just chemical reactions, which makes it so hard sometimes if you're not aware of it.
But you know what, to be honest, I can't speak for every guy, but for myself, if I feel like I don't want to sleep with a person, I don't want to sleep with them.
Mm.
It doesn't matter how attractive they are, what they have going for themselves. If I feel in myself like this isn't going to go anywhere, I'm not like, I don't want to just sleep with somebody for the sake of sleeping with them. Like, I've had my fun when I was younger, and now I'm at a point where like it's just boring. It's a waste of energy and a waste of my time because there's so many other things that I want to focus on. And like I said, with my training, the intensity of that, I need rest. Rest is such a big part of it, which is overlooked within the paradigm of fitness and performance. So if I'm going to give my energy to you and go out on a few dates or whatever, sure, I'm like ascertaining and working out as the other person probably is like, where's this going to go? But if the other person, you might get to, I have been in these awkward situations where the other person wants to sleep with me and I don't want to sleep with them. And it's like, I'm sure again, by maybe them being female, there's a little bit more of emotion involved. And like, why doesn't he want to sleep with me? Is it because I'm unattractive? And all these other stories and questions start being created. But it's like, actually, no, I'm just not into just having sex with you and then not talking to you again. Yeah. I'd rather just have sex with you at all and save myself the time and energy and save yourself, not the heartache, I'm not going to go that deep, but do you know what I mean? Like, save yourself that further emotional investment.
Yeah. You mentioned a second ago, like seeing someone. What do you think that even means these days? I think that's a lack of communication on both sides as well, because we've got so many options these days. I feel like we use seeing someone as just a way to be like, basically, I'm still exploring, like I'm keeping my options open because I just don't know if the next swipe is going to be like the love of my life, that type of thing, which is a little bit unfair on the next person that you've been spending time with.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's very it's a very fluid, a sort of like passage or road to be on. To say that you're seeing someone, I guess it can mean that you're exclusive to one person or in one couple, and it can mean that we're seeing each other, we're going out on dates, we're sleeping with each other, but we're both also seeing and sleeping with other people. And I think that's where maybe the communication is lost, and that's where maybe people can end up being a little bit hurt or upset by particular situations because the communication isn't had. That like I'm enjoying dating with you, I'm enjoying the sex or whatever it is, not me per se, but I'm saying like other people. But you know, I'm being confident to say like I'm still seeing other people. I just want you to know that so that you don't feel like, you know what I mean, and then the other person knows. Then the female might say, you know what, I thought it was actually just us two, and I'm not really willing to be, you know, sleeping with you if you're sleeping with other people. Cool, fair enough. Now the guy knows, all right, I need to make a decision. Do I like this girl enough to knock everyone else off? Or was I not really invested and kind of just enjoyed what it was? But when I was away from her, I wasn't really thinking about her. So therefore, I should probably just cut that one off.
Yeah.
You know, so I think, but then people like to play the game too much. And then the people get burnt and then upset and emotions and anger and aggression. People do crazy things.
Yeah.
All we had to have was a conversation. Say, look, I'm enjoying the time with you, but I've got other people on my line as well.
The next generation literally has to be the generation of communication. They've got no excuse to not have communication as their first go-to these days. I feel like with all these conversations, they've got no excuse. It takes.
I actually don't think it'll be very good.
Do you know, because of technology?
I think technology and the way in which they communicate now is not the way that we communicated. We was on the verge. Think about MSN, Bebo, these kind of chat groups. We were on the very brink, like very start of those things beginning, but it wasn't accessible. You know, you're at school, you didn't have phone to be, you didn't have no BBM until later in school.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That kind of communication had to be had verbally or in person, over the phone, maybe a text message, but fundamentally you couldn't see people and swipe across and chat to people from all over the world at that in your palm. Like that wasn't possible, whereas it is now. So I think their style of communication, I think that actually the art of writing those kinds of types of communication, writing letters to people, is probably going to be lost for a massive proportion of the population. I can't speak for other countries, but probably definitely in the UK. Just seeing the way that young people are now between the ages of like 15 and 18 and how they hold themselves in the thing that they're interested in. I think communication actually probably isn't going to be very good for them.
So these conversations really are just to like satisfy ourselves, satisfy our needs. Then we're just moving along with it. Then this is just for us.
The inception is an inception.
Yeah, that is it. Yeah. What about kind of like along the lines of seeing someone, what about friends with benefits? Do you think that's possible in this day and age? Like, can you be friends but also have that extra benefit to it without the other person having feelings attached to it? What's your stance on it?
For the most part, I would say no, it's not possible, because from my own experience, and I'm not saying this with an ego or anything, but I go in
love with me.
no, I go into it knowing what I want from it.
Okay.
Knowing what it is. It is what it is. And I think often, I say often, in previous instances, the woman has falling a little bit harder than perhaps she had at the beginning. So then, because my energy stayed the same, but unfortunately hers, I say unfortunately because then it creates this whirlwind of emotions. But then, yeah, they fall into a place where now they like me more than just friends with benefits, but I don't have the time or energy to give anything more than that on a sporadic one. So again, I think it comes back to that communication, and I'm recognizing like, this is what this is. Like, if your feelings change and you start liking me more, vice versa, that's okay. Like, you're allowed to have those feelings, you're allowed to have those emotions. But if you don't communicate to me that that's how you're feeling, then I can't respond accordingly. If you don't tell me that you're now falling in love with me, and then 6 months down the line, if there's a long period of time to be seeing somebody friends with benefits, but if 6 months down the line it's still occurring and we're just having fun, but now maybe 6 months is a really bad time frame. Let's just say 2 months. 2 months friends, like you've been friends for a while, whatever. If you haven't told me and now like you want to do certain things that would go beyond being friends with benefits, maybe going on holiday for some people, that might be something, or retreats or whatever it may be. Like, now we're going into the frame or the realm of a relationship.
Do you think? Or do you think it's still...
nightly calls, morning texts. But again, it's about your energy from the beginning. If the guy gives a certain level of energy from the beginning and doesn't say, look, I can't maintain this, but I'm really enjoying what we have, hopefully we can keep it going within our own diaries, within our own structure, great. But if she's still wanting attention, then you know what? I'm sorry, miss, but I can't uphold that attention. Yeah.
What have your last relationships been like? What's ended them? Have you been in long-term relationships?
I have, yeah. I was in a relationship for nearly 7 years from when I was in uni.
Damn.
Yeah. That was actually like, it was my longest relationship and by far the biggest learning experience. But very, very positive, very, very positive. Like, I think she also lived in Suffolk as well. Her mum lived in Suffolk. Our home was in Suffolk, so in Ipswich. So because of that, the distance made it more of like you have to give the effort.
Yeah.
Around the corner. We did our bachelor's together, but she did her master's in Loughborough. So again, I had to travel to go see her. And then luckily, actually, she moved to London to do her doctorate. And it was in that period of time, I think within like the first year, that we stopped seeing each other. But learned a lot of lessons, man. And I'm happy to say like we still chat to this day, still cool. And I think it's such a strong period of time, right? From the age of like 18 to 25, like it's a big portion of like your young adult life where you're growing, you're testing the world, like you're assessing what's going on. And I want to say exploring, but not in terms of like travel per se, but more like just exploring who you are as a person, how you interact with other people, especially in that relationship environment. So that was for me, a very positive experience, regardless that the relationship ended. But other than that, there's just been like odd sort of seeing each other kind of situationships, which is a cool term, I think, to just encompass like we're not really in a relationship, but it's kind of beyond the respect of just seeing each other as well.
What's that called?
A situationship.
My God, just to add to all of the other categories to put people
the other terminology, situationship, just throw it up there.
define that, a situationship? I feel like you're about to start something now.
Surely other people know about this. I mean, it's not a relationship. We're not boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah.
It's not that road, but it's gone past the point of respect of just seeing each other or friends and benefits. You sit somewhere in the middle. It's a very grey area. And I think, honestly, those grey areas often don't start out in grey, start out with full colour, full 4K HD. You know what's going on. You can see everything crystal clear. I think probably a lack of communication. And sometimes certain environments, maybe go on a holiday with that other person and recognizing, you know what, this isn't the person actually I want to be pursuing things with.
Isn't that just a case of just being too scared to commit situationship?
You know what, sometimes it's just not the right time, but it's the right person. So I think that sometimes you can end up in that position of being in a situationship, in not wanting to let it go. It's a bit selfish, but not wanting to let the person go, or then not wanting to let you go because you know the person's like good for you and you have a great time together, etc. But you don't have what it takes to then take it to the next level of being in a relationship and all those extra nuances that add on to that title.
Do you think in the future it's going to be more common for people to be in multiple relationships than just with one person? Because all these like...
In answer to your question, I think it's going to be more common, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it called polygamy?
Say again?
To be in a polygamous relationship, more dating multiple people. So I think that's going to be more, I think it will be more common. But I don't know about the mental health side of how that is going to affect people. But I do think it stems from the attention that we are constantly drawn to multiple things, and our lack of our brain's lack of ability to focus on an individual task or an individual person when there's just so many other things going on around us. Yeah. So I think that in itself, I think may create this sort of like psychology where you adore that person, you're attracted to them, you enjoy your time with them, but you also enjoy your time with another person over there as well.
That's just wanting what's the phrase?
Cake and eating it.
Say again?
Having your cake and eating it.
Having your cake and eating it. Isn't it really?
Is that the phrase?
I feel like, isn't there a bit of icing in there as well? To be fair, these days, probably. I think you might be right, but I think in our generation, not so much, because we've still been at a younger age. We were brought up that you do just find one person, you marry them, etc. Society norms. But if this is the way that this generation is kind of going and experimenting a little bit more, maybe the next generation, they'll grow up with this in mind. So it'd be for mentally a little bit easier for them.
I don't know. I didn't grow up with that. I just had my mom. So I never had that. And people around me, really, my friends didn't really have their dad around either. Some of them didn't have their mum around. So there was a lot of single parents when I was growing up. And I think even though I'm not saying I didn't have friends that didn't have, married parents, but it wasn't a thing. I never really saw it as a thing. It just is what it is. So I don't think maybe that's why I feel the way I do about a marriage. I'm not really, we've had this discussion, but not really like heavily interested in the idea of marriage and engagement and big hoo-ha wedding and all these things, when there's so much more that can be done for me on a financial level to level up oneself or together as a couple. For example, going traveling for 6 months and whatever your work situation is, taking like a sabbatical.
I don't know if that's a good idea to do that together. Speaking from experience.
But if you're going to get married, I'm not saying that just go 6 months with each other and see how you get on. Like if you're at the point where you're probably living together, you're in a situation where you want to get married, when you're at that level of commitment to one another, what you'd like to say, commitment to one another, why not spend that 10K that you're going to spend at least on the simplest wedding and go traveling for 6 months and explore the world and engage in different environments and societies and religions and all of it. Just experience the world together. That's my view anyway. And then come back. And you know what? After 6 months, you might say, that was an incredible trip, but it's not going to work. You're living in the moment, but it's not going to work after that. And then just guess what? You both experienced the world. You both engaged and then learned so many things about yourselves and about the world that you're, the planet that you're living on. And no one's really hurt because you've agreed, you know what, it's not going to work. You haven't got to now and no one get a divorce. You haven't got to tell the family members now, it's not working, we're getting a divorce. If you haven't got children as well, that's a big caveat to the whole situation. But if you haven't got children as well, do you know what I mean? Like you get to the end of the day, end of the match, you shake hands, and then you go your separate ways. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you experience the world together. So you know what, that was incredible. Huh?
Yes, your emotions are so detached.
Yeah. That's just the way I see it though.
Yeah.
Live in the moment, enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, go and do your thing. Go elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you enjoy it, amazing. Even better. Guess what? Plan another 6 months. Do another 3 months somewhere.
Have you ever had your heart broken?
No. No, I haven't.
Would you say you're scared of commitment? Are you back?
When I was younger, I was probably a little bit more skeptical about it.
Okay.
But I mean, it's not that I was scared of commitment, but if you're on stage and people are throwing roses at you, it's hard to pick up one.
Right.
So that's the kind of situation I found myself in. So I wasn't scared of commitment, but I was just getting bombarded with roses. So and they're all attractive in their own way. They all have their own flaws and special perks, but
yeah,
I just select which one to go for first. So that in itself made it difficult for me to like be selective and say, yeah, I want to commit to this person or whatever. Not to say that I didn't really feel like that anyway towards anyone in particular. I mean, before the 6-year relationship, there was only I don't know, maybe 6 months when I was in the last year of A-levels. Was that 16, 17? And she was like a year older than me. And I met her through my first job when I was working at Harrods. But other than that, like I didn't really, it was a tough one. But you know what, I'm going to be honest, as we're here, we're being honest. I find sometimes that people struggle to identify what I'm saying because they haven't experienced it. Like when you haven't experienced an environment or a situation or a feeling or like that kind of scenario, it's easy to brush it off and be like, oh, you're like, that's your ego, or just not to connect with that feeling of like, I'm not saying it's a bad feeling, but it's just a feeling nevertheless, it's an experience nevertheless that I've had to experience. I was going to say endure, but it's not that bad. It's not that deep. It's not that bad. An experience that I've experienced, a situation that I've experienced, as it doesn't mean that it needs to be dismissed or annulled, because I'm sure I'm not the only person that's had these experiences. Definitely not. But it's just a different experience that most people probably encounter.
I wonder what that means.
I've spoken a lot. I'm just going to be...
I wonder what that all means. Because I get it. I definitely, when you spoke about marriage and like potentially you don't agree with it because you were brought up by a single parent. I mean, I was brought up with both my mum and dad, and marriage has never been a thing for me. Even when I was in my like long-term relationship, and I guess I could say that I thought we were going to be together forever. Even though I've always said it, I found it quite hard to imagine being with just one person for the rest of my life, only because we just live for so long.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's down to environment and whatnot. But then I grew up with friends that were all about marriage. So, and they clearly didn't rub off on me. But I completely agree with there's no way I would spend that amount of money on a wedding. I just don't get it. Let's have a big party, fine. We can spend some money on that, but everything else that comes with it, It's never been a big thing for me.
Like you're legally binding each other.
It's so
like,
old-fashioned.
You came on this. You was born on this planet alone.
Yeah.
By yourself.
Yeah.
Sure, your mum brought you in, but you came in as a single entity, and now you want to leave, legally bind to somebody else.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense because of the reason why marriage was brought up in the first place, which was because of the status of women and men. Like women had to be married into families.
Yeah.
But that's not the case anymore. But yet we've still kept on that tradition.
Traditions, right? Traditions. That's something I don't really believe in as well. Like, I'm not really a stickler or a person of, I don't really give passion or interest to what do you call it? To tradition.
Tradition. Oh.
Like Christmas, another tradition, a pagan tradition. Easter. Like I used to get Easter eggs when I was younger, and I would never eat them. They would always just sit in a massive box underneath the stairs, and then they would get thrown away or whatever. Like it didn't really interest me because I was given the eggs. But now I'm like, I have a brother and sister, they're 8, going to be 9 in September. I'll get them like a book. I'll get them something interesting that they can make. My brother's interested in making stuff. I'll get them something that's engaging. Like my mom doesn't want them to have chocolate, which is cool anyway. Like I support that, that theory of not giving children sweets because you think it's cool for them to have sweets. That's a whole nother discussion about parenting. We'll get into that another day. But just the idea of these traditions and things being the way they are because our mums did it and their mums did it doesn't mean that you have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think where I have that kind of like cut off line with other areas, especially in like relationships and work and my training, I'm the same with traditions. I probably should celebrate my birthday a little bit more because it's the day I was put on this planet, but that's fine.
It's so funny. I guess I should celebrate me a little bit more.
Yeah, because I'm just not interested. I'm always like, no. And to be honest, I carry that same energy over to other people's birthdays. And in reflection, I probably should give a little bit more energy to my birthday and people that I love's birthday a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because it's, like I said, it's the day you was put on this planet, the day you was born into the world.
And do you think just because you don't necessarily believe in it, you'd expect your partner to not believe in it? Like, what if she did really like those kind of things? Would you make the effort to do that for her, or you would need to find somebody that has the same morals or thoughts as you?
So I think that's actually a big problem in relationships, that people settle and they think that they'll make you do and they'll accept the other person's particular ways. Yeah. I think it's to a point a lot of the time where people just had enough. They just don't want to constantly be overruled. Like you're constantly just being overruled with the other part with your partner or your wife's or whatever's views or opinions and what they want. And if you're not really clear on what you want and how you feel about a particular thing, then like let's just say Christmas, for example. Say I have a partner. I'm not gonna say wife because I wouldn't get married, but I have a partner. Like okay, marriage, right? We say if I met somebody and they were like, I really want a white wedding, it's probably not going to work. Compatibility. Oh, okay then. So if you don't have that compatibility and you're not willing to, some people are willing to make too many sacrifices, what I'm trying to say. Yeah. When they make sacrifices, they kind of lose themselves because they're just partial to whatever the partner is leading with. Yeah. They want Christmas. They want big party for Christmas. They have big party. Yeah. They want to do this or go holiday. They do that. But when it comes to the other side of it, the other partner can now not really have. I'm thinking of certain people in mind here when I say this. I'm not just plucking this out of the blue, but yeah, of course. The other person then ends up being sort of a lamb to the slaughter in its most sort of extreme version because now they're just at a whim of whatever the other partner wants. Yeah. So that compatibility. And that communication say like, this is what I want. Okay, I don't want this. This is not what I'm interested in. Yeah. I want 5 kids. I don't want 5 kids. So again, you're looking at the wrong person. There's nearly 8 billion people in the world. Roughly half of those are the opposite sex. And maybe let's just say a third of those are within your age category. There's a lot of people out there for you. It's a big wide world, a big ocean for you to pick from. So I'm just a little fish. I'm probably not the one. I'm okay with it. Again, I'm okay with not being the right person. I think everyone tries to make themselves, going back to the earlier conversation, they try to fit themselves into the other person's box so that they seem likable and accepting and like the one. But if you just stick to who you are, then people can see who you are. And then if they like who you are, guess what? You're more likely to select and find the right person for you.
Oh, so true. And later on the line, you're only going to run into trouble because you weren't being who you were authentically at the beginning. So then all those flaws are going to come out, less compatibility, etc. And that's where the arguments and everything comes in. If you're going to commit to a relationship, if that guy or girl has flaws or things that you aren't so attached to, you've got to, if you want to pursue it, you've got to accept those and not allow those to be a reason why you're not going to be with that person later on. Because in that moment you accepted it.
Yeah.
You can't use that against people. I also, if you are in a relationship, you can't look at changing someone else. You'll never be able to change anyone else. You need to look at yourself first. And if you want to change things, work on yourself, you may be able to inspire that other person. If they really want to change, they will be inspired by it. But if not, you've got to reevaluate and just bite the bullet. Perhaps it doesn't matter if it's been 5-7 years. At the end of the day, if you're not compatible, you're not compatible. You've got the rest of your life to live. And I always go back to when my last relationship ended. As much as it was heartbreaking, at that time, I was very much like, at least I'm proud of you for at least making the decision in order to find what you need to without dragging me along with it. And it's so hard to say, and no need to go like into what happened after, but you've got to like be happy and not.
100%. And that's where I was at with my ex as well. 7 years ago, it's a long time to be with somebody. So a very important part of your life as well in that 18 to 25. And that's why I'm so thankful that it turned out the way it did. And we both just said, you know what, this isn't really what neither of us want anymore. But neither of us really see this going any further. It's kind of like fizzled out a little bit. So we say, you know what, cool. We're still brethren.
Yeah.
Still check for you, but I'm gonna let you do your thing, and you know you're gonna let me do my thing. And I think for that, again, I'm thankful for it because that's a sick relationship to have, in the loosest sense. And
you went through so much together, and that's like, it shouldn't be overlooked. Like, I mean, for me, I was in the States. So much happened there, travels. You don't want to forget that, and you don't need to forget that. You've just got to sit with being heartbroken for a little while, because know that it's going to be better in the long run, and you just don't know what's going to happen in the long run. I personally don't think it's a good idea to go back to a relationship it ended for a reason.
Yeah.
But that's my own opinion on that. But you just got to learn to be uncomfortable and just upset for a period of time, because it will blow over. But it's easier to be unhappy than it is to make a difference and a change, which is mad.
Yeah, here to that. I think a lot of the time people don't like being uncomfortable in any capacity at all. They always, I say even in my class that your body always wants to find the easiest route from A to B. The mind also wants to give you the easiest route, and I think probably some motivational speakers out there that say for something very similar. And I might just sound like I'm regurgitating them, but I have the same thought process, and I have the same approach to pretty much every aspect of my life as well, is that I have to endure the unenjoyables, the toughness, the grit, the determination, the self-sacrifice, in order for me to make sure that my A to B is the best possible journey, not the shortest possible journey.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when it comes to relationships, people lose sight of there's going to be things that are going to be uncomfortable. And especially in breakup, there's going to be things that you just have to get over and see that as a learning process for you to go on to bigger and better things. But I think a lot of the time people like to settle and they want that easy route. They want the 2 children, they want the house, they want the car, they want 2 holidays a year. And there's nothing wrong with settling, right? Because I think everyone has their position in society. Everyone has their place. So if you didn't have those people, then what would we speak about? who would those people be? Would they be the billionaires? Would they be the people at the lower end of society?
Mm.
Like, I'm sure that particular house, car, 2 kids, there's probably that in both ends of the spectrum, in the top 1% and at the bottom as well. But again, it gets how you carry yourself and how and what else you do with your time. I think again, going back to this, I feel like I'm just trying to shit now, but going back to the point of just understand that you're going to have to endure some uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
You have to push yourself and challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Beyond
I think you were onto something though, Reece. You weren't chatting rubbish. I think there's a bracket, and it's collecting the people that are in that bracket and letting people know that you can move on out of the relationship and it's going to be okay. Like you've got that bracket of people. Yes, you've got those brackets that are just happy to settle and they'll live unhappy, and you may never change that. That's fine. But for the people that are here, they're the people that you're reaching out to, because you've experienced it yourself. So there is a conversation for everyone. Yeah.
I think that in itself, the idea of settling, and whether those people that we on the outside perceive as settling and the easy route, whether those people or the majority of those people actually recognize that they are settling for the easier option. And by easier option, I might mean, it's difficult to say actually. I was going to talk about being on benefits and stuff, but that in itself is a whole fucked up thing with politics and the way that the system is set up. But easier option, perhaps, rather than pursuing a career that they've really wanted to do, they might have just said, you know what, my husband's earning a lot of money, let me just stay at home with the kids and I'll be a housewife. Again, there's nothing wrong with being a housewife, but if you like, again, going back to this idea, when you came on this planet, you was by yourself. You came in as one person, as one individual. You now travel through life, maybe 80 to 90 years, hopefully, for the healthy individual, exploring and challenging and enjoying particular parts of life, going through many experiences, right? But if you, like, with only 30 years in, say, you know what, I'm not going to continue to explore and challenge myself in that capacity. I'm going to settle, what we would see as like settling, to allow myself to be in a comfortable situation with my children. Maybe I got a nanny as well to look after the children as well during the day because they're a bit of a handful. My husband's out, he's traveling the world doing his work. Like, is that settling? Like, especially when if you ask that person 5 years earlier or 10 years earlier, what do you want to be? I want to be I want to be one of the leading podiatrists. I want to be working in space exploration, or I want to be in cancer research, looking at cures for particular diseases or illness. And then they just settle for having children and see that as, for me, I see that as the easy option because you've now chosen a route which you know is not difficult. I'm not saying bringing children up is difficult or isn't difficult, because that's a big challenge in itself, and that is a journey in itself. But I just think it's looking at the paradigm of whether people who do take what we would perceive as the easier option or the easier route recognize that they've taken that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, as been like onlookers, or the person in that situation needs to.
Yeah, the person in that situation, whether they would recognize, if you ask them, do you realize you're taking the easy route? Like, if life could pull them out of their situation and say, you know, you're taking the easy route, right? Whether they'd be like defensive, like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm doing this. Or whether they'd be like, yeah, you know what? I really wanted to do this, and I knew it was going to be a challenge for me to get there. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to settle for being a housewife or being a PA for my husband or whatever it may be.
Or vice versa. Maybe it's
absolutely. And that's becoming more and more prevalent, which I think is great, because I'm not a person that thinks that I need to earn more than my wife or my partner at all. My missus is earning a huge proportion of money and I'm earning a little bit, but we both get on, we have great conversation, we both enjoy our time together as individuals away from the financial onboarding, then what does it matter?
Yeah.
I mean, what does it matter? But I think, again, going back to guys, I think there's a stigma, like, my missus needs to earn less than me, I need to earn more than. It's like, why?
I think that ended my last relationship because we became too competitive in that sense and weren't like cheering each other on instead.
I think, like, there was a cool caption that I saw with Jason Statham and his model wife, and she was like, you know, he'll get dinner, I'll get dessert. He'll pay for drinks, I'll pay for dinner. Like, when you have that, and I'd had that in my past, in my longest relationship, we'll just get different things. And it was never a question. It was never a thing of, oh, you got this last time, so let me get this. That's what it was. It was cool. It wasn't like flipping out and paying for like all these dinners and she ain't got nothing. Like freeloading. And I think that's when you comes down to the right person, right?
Yeah.
And that level of attraction. Going back to, I know we're going skipping through back and forth here, but if you go on dates and all you're doing is buying big dinners for females, now you're creating a level of exposure they're expecting. So if you're creating that exposure, now you're dropping back down.
Don't expect that either. That's also like attached to that.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, I can't even afford that. I can't afford going to sushi samba and doing those types of things. So why am I I haven't been there, considering I work next door to it, but I haven't actually been in there. Like, if I take a girl on a date, I might go to find a little boutique restaurant or bar or a little like quaint joint. And I'm sure many other guys do that to you. I'm not, you know, I'm not giving, not giving enlightening information to the world, but like, that's the thing that I like to do. That's my thing, is to find like cool, quirky places that's not gonna empty out my pocket, because I'm not financially like that. I haven't got that.
If the girl doesn't like that or doesn't respect it, not the right person.
Absolutely. So it's this self-fulfilling prophecy. If you create what you put forwards. If you put forward this high-end lifestyle, big dinner, champagne popping, guess what? The girls are gonna think, oh, this is his lifestyle. I like this lifestyle. I want to continue to enjoy this lifestyle, so I'm gonna stay with him. And then he starts dropping down, or he or she starts dropping down, and no longer able to uphold that level. Now you've lost the person. You're like, why did I lose her? She was so cool, bro. Because you created her lifestyle where she thought she was getting champagne every weekend, but you can only afford Fanta. Like, it is what it is.
And nothing wrong with Fanta.
If there's one thing I've learned in the past 10 years, I'm 30 this year. I know, don't look at that, but I'm 30 this year. If there's one thing I've learned, it's live within your means. Live within your means. Don't feel like you need to floss or show a level of exposure and expansion that you haven't, and grandeur that you haven't got. Just do you. No one really cares. Enjoy what you have. Work hard. Challenge yourself. Push yourself, and the right people will come around you when you start doing
that. So good. I love that.
I believe it. I'm not just saying it as well. I believe it. And I've seen the change in myself as I've started to care less about the things that don't really concern me and the people that don't benefit me, and giving more energy, more time to the people that are fulfilling, that do make me feel good when I'm around them, boys and girls. And making time for what you see as important, and not allowing anyone to just deter you from what you're working towards. And when you have that level of sort of confined mindset, other people appreciate that, they'll encourage it, and now you have a supportive framework in what you're trying to achieve. Which is only a good thing, man. And even if your circle's small and you've only got 1-2 good friends that you can rely on, whatever, so be it. Like, I'd much rather have that than have 15-20 friends all over the place, but now when I'm out of money, now no one can really help me. For me, that's not what it's about.
I think it's just interesting having like a guy and a girl talk. You don't normally see that. You see people, genders talking amongst themselves. But actually, why are we not mixing in between? Because it's the other gender, typically, at least for us, that we communicate and get into relationships with. So I think it's quite interesting to see what the other
hopefully people enjoyed this, if they're still watching.
No doubt.